Hey everybody. I was there yesterday for the Charlie Kirk shooting, and so I just thought I would kind of get on here and recount my experience while it still is fresh on my mind. Already I find myself trying to forget it or somehow convince myself that it is not real, it didn't happen. So whether I share this just for myself, my own records, or um, maybe for those who are curious, or if it can be helpful in any way, I just want to record it before the trauma part of my brain kicks it out, which I do kind of hope happens. I was 20 feet away. I was right there, really close. And I'm a pretty tall guy, so I had a clear vision of Charlie. He came walking out, and the whole audience just lit up, and he himself was lit up. You know, you see somebody on the internet, you follow them, and you kind of have a base idea of how they are and how they behave, but seeing him in person was just so different. It was it was great to see him there, so happy, so composed, and so willing to talk to everybody, so excited to see everybody in the crowd, and for all of us to see him. And it was a really great 14 minutes that we got to spend in his presence. And despite the horrific way that it ended, a part of me is glad that I was there to be able to get to see him um, for literally the very last time. When I got there, I was surprised because I carry a gun myself pretty often. You know, it's Utah where we have Constitution carry here, so it's pretty open and you can carry a gun. Most places it's allowed. College campus probably wasn't allowed. I decided to play it safe and didn't bring my gun, but I did still have my pocket knife just out of habit. I always do, you know, just for a tool. And I walked right in. No security checking people or anything, which granted shouldn't have needed to be a security check, right? It's a college campus. Charlie's not the president. He's not some huge person, right? I mean, he is. He's famous, but he's not an evil person. He's not out there doing any harm, right? So to think that this would happen is just mind blowing. When I got there, though, walked in, no problem with the pocket knife. I saw where the booth was, kind of down at the bottom of this bowl, and so I kind of pushed through the crowd a little bit. You know, got to the bottom where everybody else was, and once I got there, there was plenty of standing space for me because everybody else kind of preferred to be up higher, so they had a better viewpoint of him. And I feel guilty now for this even crossing my mind and for saying this, but I actually took pictures of my surrounding area and I sent it to my work friends and I said, I feel like I'm in the kill zone right here because I'm in the bottom of this bowl, and up on here on the right side there's people with pride flags and everything else shouting F you Charlie and all kinds of things up there, and clearly they have a good viewpoint of me. Mind you, I wasn't afraid of them per se, but it did cross my mind. There's all these buildings around you. Very easy vantage point for any evil person to commit a truly heinous crime. So that thought crossed my mind, and I sent in those pictures of what it looked like around. Um, so just to kind of recount the experience, I'll tell you what happened from my standpoint. If you feel like it's something you don't want to hear, then of course I understand, and you don't need to continue. One person got up there and asked Charlie a question about religion. He said that he grew up an atheist and then he got baptized to be a Mormon, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And now what he wanted to argue Charlie with, he said, Charlie, I love you. I think we're not going to find much to argue about, but one thing I think we could argue about is religion, because I think that the LDS Church is more historically accurate than Christianity in general. So they went back and forth on that a bit, and I'm not great with scripture. They quoted scripture back and forth to each other a little bit. I don't remember a whole lot of what was said, but Charlie, I will forever remember, he said, I don't want to keep going down this path and having this conversation with you because I feel like the takeaway is going to be that I don't love Mormons, that I don't support Mormons, when I absolutely do. And then he pointed to a lot of his team members and said, he's a Mormon, she's a Mormon, he's a Mormon. He's like, I love Mormons and I'm surrounded by them all the time and I know a lot about your religion. So I don't want the takeaway to be that I don't support you guys because I do. So that was great to hear. I grew up LDS. I still believe a lot of the LDS teachings and a lot of it resonates with me, but I don't really attend anymore. But it still will forever be my community, and I'll forever feel like I'm a part of that. So to hear Charlie talk so positively about it in his final moments is something that I will cherish. After that, somebody else got up, and this is where everything went wrong. They asked him if he thinks transgender people should be able to own guns. And he said, before I continue, I want to ask you that question. Should transgender people be able to own guns? And Charlie shook his head no, which is a pretty strong stance. I'm sure in his perspective, that reason being because transgender people are more prone to, I think for a lot of the conservative world, the thought process is if you are willing to go through that and become transgender and do the surgery, you're a man, you think you're a woman, or your woman think you're a man, then there's something off with you mentally. Therefore, owning a gun is probably not the safest thing, because if you're already a little mentally unstable, then what else might you do with a gun, right? So I think that's the general consensus with a lot of conservatives. He asked that question, and Charlie said no. So then the guy said, well, do you know how many transgender shootings there have been in the past year? And Charlie simply said, too many, and put the mic down. And then he said, okay, well, do you know how many there have been for non-transgender people? And then Charlie said, including or not including gang violence. And that was the last word Charlie ever said. Now, after he asked that question, said including or not including gun or gang violence, the other guy said, great question or great point, and started to counter Charlie. And it was at that moment that I heard, it seems silly to even have had the thought now, because I grew up around guns and I still use guns regularly as a hobby. I know a decent amount about them and obviously what they sound like, but at the time when I heard it, I just thought to myself, that's an ill-timed firework. That's insensitive for somebody to be doing that right now. Some kind of joke. So that crossed my mind. And then I thought, well, maybe that was a gunshot, but I'm sure it was just something over there unrelated to this, right? I immediately went to complete ignorance and denial, which is crazy, just how quickly I had that thought. So I heard the noise. I looked up for a brief second to try to see where it came from. Looked back at Charlie to see a lot of blood coming out of his throat. And I mean, you see it in movies and shows and stuff nowadays. I don't know why they insist on showing so much of that stuff, but they do. And I always think, like, that's ridiculous. That's not what it looks like or what it could be. I don't know how many of you have watched the show Severance. In the last episode, there's an incident like that. And I don't mean to be insensitive compared to a show, but it really is like that incident in Severance, if you know what I'm talking about, in the elevator. It's just a lot, probably this far from his body is what I saw. When I saw that, I still just was in shock. And when I finally registered, it felt like forever, but I'm sure in reality it was pretty quick. When I registered what happened, I hit the ground. Everything went silent. I don't really know who was around me, wasn't paying attention. I think I was laying on top of somebody's shoe, like just getting my face down as low as I could, which I know may seem like a cowardly approach, but in that instant, I mean, you always think in your head, like, what would I do in that scenario? I didn't know what I would do, but that's what I did. I hit the ground, put my face on the grass, and just started praying harder than I ever have before. First, I prayed for my family to be safe without me and to be able to move on and be okay. I then prayed for each of them individually, starting with my oldest daughter, then my son, then my youngest daughter, and then my wife, that she would find the strength to carry on and provide for our children and have a happy life in my absence should it be my time. And in that moment, I was very scared, obviously. But as a little bit of time went on, a few seconds passed, and I realized there wasn't any other shots, there likely wasn't going to be any other shots, I started to feel this sense of peace of just, you're okay. I'm okay. I'm going to survive this. But things are not going to be the same, and the world is not okay. I then sat up and I looked at the woman next to me, and I think I was more out of sorts than she was because she looked at me and she said, "You're okay. You're all right. Let's go." And I said, "Are we alive? This has got to be a dream. There's no way this just happened." And she said, "You're alive. You're okay. Let's go." And then I ran from there. The path that we had to run, I ran right past Charlie's table. You know, his canopy with the chair and the table and the microphone, and I saw his blood everywhere. I looked over there expecting to see his body, to kind of, in that moment, I felt like I was checking on a friend, like, oh, Charlie's there, I got to make sure he's okay. And he was gone. They must have taken him away immediately because, like I said, it really wasn't long from the time I hit the ground until I ran past. It's probably 1 minute, I would say. So I ran past the table of blood and went and hid behind a car for a minute. And then when I felt like it was safe, I continued to run and walk as quick as I could back towards my truck. Once I got a little further away from the scene, I called my wife and told her what happened. And she didn't really understand what I was saying at first, couldn't really process it. I had to repeat myself a few times before it clicked, which I'm sure I was kind of incoherent, not really making sense. But I told her, and then I told my work group, and eventually made it back to my truck and started calling my loved ones and informing everybody of what happened. And at first, people, again, were in denial. My work friends were like, "Ronnie, this is not a good joke. What are you talking about? There's nothing on the news. I don't see anything on the news. What are you talking about?" And it wasn't until just a couple minutes later that, you know, I'm sure they believed me, but didn't want to. And then started seeing it on the news just really kind of hit home and made the whole thing real. And there for a little bit, people were sending in saying that he was in critical condition and that he might pull through. I know people started saying that they're praying for him and hoping he'll pull through. But again, I'm no expert. I grew up with guns. I've done a lot of shooting myself. Seeing that much damage to somebody's body with your own two eyes, I had no hope that he was going to pull through. It looked impossible. So that's everything that happened. I waited in traffic for a long time, for an hour to get out of there, and made it home safely to my wife and my beautiful kids, and just kind of have been hugging them and trying to enjoy my time with them as much as I can. But at this point, I don't know what to do. And this is where I might ask for advice from anybody willing to give it. Anything that I do feels inappropriate, right? If I sit there and watch my favorite movies and try to just pass the time and forget about it and move on, it seems irreverent or disrespectful to the situation. But if I just sit here and stew on it and play it back in my mind over and over again, I'm gonna go crazy. I feel like I need to take this experience and somehow turn it into a positive and move forward. Not a positive, because this will never be a positive situation, but somehow I need to find the strength to help others in any way that I can, to help heal the world. We need to find a better way to disagree with each other and have it be okay. And I don't know what that way is, but I'm going to try my best to find it, even if it's just in my immediate friend group, in my circle of people, my social circle, or if I can somehow have an impact outside of that. I really want to at least try to inspire others. So thank you for listening to me and giving me the chance to talk about this. One last thing right now that is going through my mind is I play it through my head, and the scenario, right? I'll see it flash kind of in my mind's eye, and I'll flinch. I'll kind of tighten up. And when I do that, when I flinch after seeing it again, my sweet wife will be like, "Are you okay? What's going on? What's going through your head?" And I'll just tell her, like, it's just kind of playing on repeat, or I just saw it again unexpectedly. And when that happens, I find myself trying to deny it, I guess, or convince myself that it's not true. I'm kind of finding myself going crazy right now in my head, like, you didn't really see that. That didn't really happen. It's just a news story, right? Seeing it on the news in some ways makes it feel more real to me and be like, wow, that really did happen. And I was there for that. But also seeing it on the news somehow makes it feel more distant. Like, it is just a crazy story, because usually you hear about these things far away from you, and you weren't there to see it. But I just want to say here now, for my records, before I forget, if I forget, that really did happen. I really did see Charlie Kirk get shot in the throat at the University of Utah. I did see blood flying from his body. I was there, saw with my own two eyes. And in that moment when he got shot, the way I recount it, he got shot and I could see the white of his eyes as his eyes rolled back. And it looked to me like the life was leaving his body. I felt like I was saying goodbye to a friend for the last possible time. And in that immediate moment, I was glad to be in his presence, to say goodbye to him as he left this earth and went home to our Heavenly Father. So again, thank you for listening. I apologize. I'm a very sensitive guy. I feel a lot of emotion, but it doesn't express itself in the way of tears. So please don't think me heartless. I don't seem to cry for some reason, despite what I'm feeling. But this was a tragic incident, and I'm feeling a lot. I know a lot of people around me are feeling anger. But being there, seeing Charlie die, anger is not the emotion that comes to my mind, that comes to my heart. What comes to me right now is we have just got to find a way to unite, be better, have our differences, have it be okay, because it is okay. And life can be over literally in an instant. You hear a noise, you look away for a second, you look back, and somebody's gone forever. So hopefully this is good information to have. Not good information, but interesting information to hear. Hopefully I can help people. Again, I'm open to comments and help on my end as well, because I don't really know how to process this. Anyway, thank you.